Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Trailblazers podcast. On today's episode, we're wanting to talk about the Amazon leadership principle, and that is about taking ownership. And why is taking ownership important? So for taking ownership in the Amazon leadership principle case, why Amazon utilizes this is, say, in a company context, they want people to feel empowered and basically owning the work that they're doing and perhaps taking on initiatives. So for example, say on a business context of where this could be important to you, like say like for myself personally, is maybe as a software developer, I see a particular system that I'm interested in and I know it provides a lot of value to the business. And say like at any particular point in time, like I might realize we have like an inefficiency or a bug in that software system. What I want to do is rather than say like, oh, Tyler's going to go and figure out this bug later, or like, I'll make a ticket and I'll put this in later. I really am like, I realize that this has high importance for the success of the company, because as a taking ownership principles, I'm always thinking about how would this provide the best value to the company in the long run. And instead of that, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to work on this right now, or, put it into my backlog and make it like a high priority, because what I'm trying to think about when I'm taking ownership is thinking about the company's best interests, and then making sure that I have those in mind when I'm going and delegating and thinking about my work. So Tyler, what are your thoughts on the taking ownership principle?
I think, yeah, for sure. It's one of the most important principles in my point of view, and primarily because it's one of those things in an organization, it's very contagious. So if you have people in leadership positions that are very akin to taking ownership, then that's going to trickle down through the entire team, and it's going to make your whole organization better. And like you were saying, problems get addressed right away. And it creates a culture where, especially for accountability, like ownership goes hand in hand a lot with accountability. So like, if there's a task or a project or something like that, and you're willing to take responsibility for that, whether it ends up being a success or a failure, and especially that's when it comes into play the most, is you're taking ownership over something when it becomes a failure. If you can be accountable for that and responsible for that, and you have a company organization where that's okay, then people are going to be a lot more willing to be accountable for things and take ownership of projects and really be the person that the entire team can count on for that. And so what you'll see a lot of times at companies is, a lot of people will wear like a lot of different hats. They'll have different roles, especially at small startups, right? And so what this does sometimes is it prevents people from taking ownership of any one thing, because everybody's responsible for everything rather than somebody being responsible for one specific thing, right? So if you have very defined roles within your organization, that will increase the amount of ownership that people take and the amount of accountability that they have. And so it seems like a scary thing if you own a project or a task or a specific initiative within your organization. But if everybody's doing that and it's okay to kind of ride that through the success and failures and be accountable for that, then you create a really strong company culture. And it's one of those things that's contagious. So I think like whether at the individual level, you can take a lot of ownership, and especially if you're a leader, it's paramount to be able to do this, because then you'll see the rest of your team doing it. And so it's one of those things like, at the top of your organization, it needs to be getting done, and then it'll trickle down through the whole organization. And that's why I think it's important. I've had a lot of personal experience with it, and it creates a really good company working culture to be in. And it's one of those things, if you're in an interview or you're trying to get a position at a company, and people want to see that you want to take ownership of things and you want to be in charge of things, and that's somebody that they can rely on. So I mean, I think it's something really good to ingrain early at the individual level and at the leadership level. And I think it's of paramount importance for these principles. Any final thoughts, Dave?
A couple quick final thoughts on this one. One thing that I'm thinking about is, if we put this into our career at a very early age and we're taking ownership, I think it gives the leaders and the managers that are above us a lot of confidence that we have the ability to execute on our work and take in a lot of scope. Because I think a lot of times when we're thinking about ownership, is we might not have all the answers to our problem right off the bat, but it kind of shows our managers and it shows our leaders that we're willing to basically work through the problems that we have, or communicate with other teammates and get the right information, and then making decisions or taking action, which is another leadership principle we'll talk about later. But I think from a high level is it can put a really good kind of like characteristic, or like basically people will trust you a lot if you're taking the ownership and you're working diligently towards, thinking about the company's best outcomes. So thanks for listening today. And as always, if you like what we're doing here, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the podcast. We'll promise we'll actually make more podcast episodes in the future, but for now, we're just wanting to share positive information. So hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.
See you next time.